Juno turned the crank. The hatch hissed and opened. We emerged into the lower wing of North Ridge. Sterile walls, fluorescent lights, no alarms yet. Mariah took point, and we followed fast. One hallway, then two. On the third turn, we found them. 6 children, locked in a glass cell, eyes wide, faces pale. One of them, the boy from the video, looked up and met Mariah's gaze. She froze. And for a moment, so did time. Then she bolted forward, smashing the butt of her rifle into the control panel. Sparks flew. The door slid open. "It's okay," she said gently. "We're here now. We're going to take you home." The boy stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Jay," Carl shouted. "We've got incoming, North Corridor." I turned, rifle up. A platoon of black-suited guards poured into the hall, weapons raised. Gunfire erupted. The kids ducked. Mariah threw herself in front of them. I slid beside her, returning fire. Bullets sparked off the walls. I hit one guard square in the chest. Another dropped from a headshot by Carl. "Fall back to the tram line," Juno shouted. "No," Mariah yelled. "We stand our ground. We don't have time." "Then make time." The guards pressed forward. We fell into formation, shields up, every round fought with our will. Then I saw it, an opening, a weakness. "Mariah," I shouted, grabbing her hand. "Left flank now." We surged forward together, like always. Like we'd been born to move as one. Within minutes, the guards fell back, retreating under pressure. We pulled the children close, leading them through the halls as alarms finally began to wail. More would come, but we would be ready. As we reached the exit tunnel, Mariah slowed beside me. The boy, silent until now, reached out and took her hand. "I heard your voice," he said, "before you came. I don't know how, but I knew you'd come." Mariah bent low, her eyes glistening. 56. "So did I," she whispered. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the war had only just begun. The cold night air hit us like a slap as we spilled out of the tunnel, the rescued children close behind. Mariah's hand tightened around mine, grounding me. Her eyes scanned the shadows, every muscle coiled, ready. "Move." Carl barked, leading us toward the extraction point. The city felt different now, darker, sharper, charged with electricity. Every distant siren, every flicker of movement, told a story of a fight we were stirring awake. The boy stayed close to Mariah, clutching her sleeve like she was the only solid thing left in this shattered world. I glanced at her. "You all right?" She gave a small, tired smile. "I will be, now that he's safe." Behind us, the pounding of boots grew louder. Reinforcements. Faster than expected. "Ambush," Juno warned. 2 squads flanking east and west. We veered into a narrow alley, the children pressed tight against us. The walls closed in, but there was no slowing down. "Hold them here," Mariah commanded. We buy time. I covered her back, firing bursts into the shadows. The guards hesitated, surprised by our ferocity. Mariah's voice was steel. "You don't get to take them again." Bullets tore past us. The fight wasn't just for survival. It was for every stolen childhood, every fractured memory. A shot grazed my arm, burning cold. I shook it off, focus razor sharp. The boy whimpered but stayed silent, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. Minutes stretched like hours, every breath a battle. Then, sirens wailing, our extraction arrived, armored vehicles cutting through the fog like thunder. "Load them up," Carl yelled. We moved fast, the children climbing in first, then us. As the vehicle roared to life, I looked at Mariah, exhausted but unbroken. "We're not done," she said. "No," I agreed. "But tonight, we won." The city's heart beat wild around us, but inside the armored shell, a fragile spark of hope flickered. 57. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like the war could be won, not just survived. The vehicle rumbled through the night, tires splashing through puddles and broken glass. Inside, the children huddled together, some whispering questions, others simply clutching each other tight. Mariah sat beside the boy, her fingers brushing his hair gently, trying to soothe the tremors she knew still shook him. I leaned back, scanning the city through rain-streaked windows. The skyline was a jagged scar against the dark sky, broken towers, fires burning in pockets, the ghost of what once was. Carl sat across from me, wiping sweat and grime from his brow. "They'll regroup," he said grimly. "And they'll come for us harder." Mariah's voice was steady. "Let them come." I nodded, heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and something deeper, hope, maybe. Or the fierce promise that we weren't just survivors anymore. We were fighters. The boy looked up at me suddenly, eyes clear despite everything. "Will we be safe now?" I caught Mariah's gaze, and she gave a small, tired smile. "We will be," I said softly. "Together." Outside, the city roared and burned, but inside that vehicle, wrapped in the quiet breath of new beginnings, we held on to each other. Because the war wasn't just for survival. It was for freedom. And for the chance to live again. The vehicle's headlights cut through the fog as we sped away from North Ridge. Each mile felt like peeling ourselves further from the nightmare we'd left behind, but I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Mariah sat silently beside me, still cradling the boy's small hand in hers. Her gaze was fixed on the dark horizon, shadows flickering over her face. "Jay," she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "This fight, it's bigger than us. Bigger than just saving those kids." I met her eyes. "Yeah, it is." She swallowed hard, the weight of it settling between us like an unspoken truth. They've built an empire on fear and control. But tonight, we tore a hole in that empire. I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "And we're going to keep tearing until it falls." Her lips twitched into a small, fierce smile. "I've never been more sure of anything." The boy stirred beside her, eyes heavy but curious. "Can I tell you something?" Mariah asked him gently. He nodded. 58. "You're not alone anymore. We're your family now. And we're going to fight for every single one of you until no one else has to live in fear." He squeezed her hand, a fragile hope blooming in his gaze. I looked out the window as the city lights faded behind us. The war ahead was long and brutal, but for the first time, we had something worth fighting for. Together. The night stretched on, the vehicle cutting through shadows and silence. Every mile brought us farther from the nightmare, but closer to the fight ahead. Mariah stirred beside me, eyes fluttering open. "Jay," she whispered, voice raw but determined. I tightened my hold. "I'm here." She gave a small, tired smile. "We'll build something better. For them. For us." I nodded, heart steady despite the exhaustion weighing down my limbs. "We will. One day at a time." Outside, the first hints of dawn began to bleed into the sky, soft, fragile light breaking through the darkness. And for the first time, it felt like hope wasn't just a word. It was a promise. The hum of the engine was the only sound for a long moment. Outside, the world blurred into streaks of dark and light, but inside the vehicle, time seemed to slow. Mariah leaned her head against my shoulder, tiredness finally catching up with her. I wrapped an arm around her, holding her close, steady, like a promise. "We'll need a base," I said softly. "Somewhere we can regroup. Train. Plan." She nodded, eyes closed. "Someplace safe." I glanced at the kids. They were settling, the fear in their eyes replaced by something tentative, fragile. "This is just the beginning," I said, voice steady. "We save the ones we can. Then we take the fight to them." Mariah smiled faintly, squeezing my hand. One step at a time. I kissed her forehead, feeling the warmth beneath the exhaustion. Outside, the city slept or pretended to. Inside, we were awake. Fighting. Living. And together, unstoppable. The vehicle slowed as we neared the safe house, nestled deep in the woods where the city's noise couldn't reach us. Trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with morning mist. Mariah stirred again, her fingers curling around mine. "Almost home," I whispered. 59. She smiled, tired but real. "Home." We climbed out carefully, the cool air biting at our skin, but somehow feeling cleaner, freer. The children followed quietly, eyes wide but less afraid. Inside the safe house, warmth greeted us, a fire crackling softly, rough blankets folded on worn couches, faces waiting. Our family. Carl met my gaze, nodding once. We got a second chance. I looked at Mariah, then at the kids settling in, their small hands reaching out, connecting. We fight for this, I said. She squeezed my hand, eyes shining with something fierce and bright. Together. She puts her arms around me, pulling me close like I'm the only anchor left in this spinning world. Her breath is warm against my neck, steadying me. I'm here, she whispers, voice soft but sure. I close my eyes, letting the weight of everything, the fear, the fight, the hope fold into that simple embrace. For the first time in a long time, I don't have to be strong. I just have to be here, with her. 60. Breaking dawn, the first light of day seeped through the cracked windows of the safe house, casting golden streaks across the worn floor. Outside, birds began their tentative songs, as if the world itself was waking from a long nightmare. Mariah sat by the fire, her hands wrapped around a mug of steaming tea. The boy we rescued was asleep on a faded couch, his small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. I leaned against the doorway, watching her, the fierce survivor who'd carried more than her share of pain, yet still held onto something soft inside. She looked up, catching my gaze. We did good, she said quietly. We did, I agreed. Her smile was fragile but real. For the first time in months, maybe years, the weight on my chest felt lighter. Because we weren't just running anymore. We were building. Together. Outside, the city remained scarred and broken, but here, in this small refuge, something new was taking root. And as the sun rose higher, I knew we would fight not just to survive, but to live. To reclaim everything they tried to steal. Our freedom. Our future. Our family. The warmth of the fire filled the room, chasing away the lingering cold from the night's chaos. Mariah stood and crossed the small space to where I waited. She slid her hands into mine, fingers intertwining effortlessly, like they belonged there, like we belonged together. I don't know what comes next, she said, voice soft but steady, but I know we face it side by side. I nodded, feeling the weight of that promise settle deep inside me. No more running. She smiled, a spark lighting behind her tired eyes. No more hiding. Outside, the world was waking, uncertain, raw, but alive. Inside, we found something worth fighting for. Hope. And maybe, just maybe, the chance to finally be free. She pulled me closer, her arms wrapping around my neck like a lifeline. I'm tired, she whispered. But for the first time, I'm not afraid. Her breath was warm against my skin, steadying me through the storm still raging inside. I held her like she was the only solid thing left, and maybe she was. 61. We sat together near the window, watching the city wake beneath soft morning light. Mariah's hand found mine again, fingers tracing slow, reassuring circles. Every scar, every loss, it brought us here, she said, voice barely above a breath. And I'm not letting go this time. Outside, the world was broken, but here inside this fragile shelter, hope was growing. I met her gaze and saw something fierce and unyielding shining in her eyes. This fight, I said quietly, it's ours now. We decide how it ends. She smiled, the kind of smile that promises fire and healing all at once. The boy stirred nearby, sleepy and safe for the first time in who knows how long. Mariah leaned her head against my shoulder, her warmth a balm to years of pain. We'll keep them safe, she vowed. Because this family, this life, it's worth everything. And in that moment, I believed her. Wholeheartedly. The morning light stretched across the room, soft and forgiving, wrapping us in a quiet that felt almost sacred. Mariah's fingers tightened around mine, grounding me in the here and now, the only place that mattered. Her eyes searched mine, full of a fierce hope I hadn't seen in a long time. Whatever comes, she said, voice steady, we face it together. No more running, no more hiding. I nodded, the weight of that promise settling deep inside me like a steady heartbeat. Outside, the world was still broken, But inside this room, we were building something stronger, something unbreakable. With her by my side, I knew we could survive anything. And maybe, just maybe, we would finally be free. The morning light filtered softly through the cracked window panes, casting gentle rays that danced across the worn wooden floorboards. The air was cool, but carried a faint warmth, the promise of a new day that felt almost fragile, like the world itself was holding its breath. Mariah's fingers curled tightly around mine, the simple touch anchoring me to this moment, to the here and now. Her eyes met mine, searching, fierce yet tender, carrying a hope that felt both foreign and desperately needed after so much darkness. She whispered, voice low but unwavering, whatever comes, we face it together. No more running, no more hiding. The words settled over me, sinking deep like the steady beat of a drum inside my chest. It wasn't just a promise, it was a vow forged from years of pain, loss, and battles fought in shadows. I nodded, squeezing her hand in return, feeling the weight of that shared commitment as if it could shield us from everything yet to come. Outside, the world remained fractured, cracked streets, shattered buildings, the distant echo of sirens weaving through the dawn. But inside this small, battered safe house, surrounded by whispered breaths and fragile hope, we were building something new, something stronger, something unbreakable. Mariah leaned her head against my shoulder, and I could feel the steady rise and fall of her breath, the warmth that seeped into my skin and calmed the storm inside me. Her presence was a balm, soft but fierce, grounding but freeing all at once. It reminded me why we fought, why we'd never stop. 62. With her by my side, the fear that had clung to me for so long began to loosen its grip. I felt, maybe for the first time in forever, a flicker of peace, a fragile kindling of hope that one day we might not just survive, but truly live. And as the pale light grew stronger, flooding the room with the quiet promise of a dawn yet to come, I knew we would face whatever was waiting. Together, unbroken, ready. The room was quiet except for the soft crackle of the fire, its amber glow flickering against the worn walls. Outside, the first birds hesitated in their songs, as if sensing the fragile peace we held inside these walls. Mariah shifted slightly in my arms, her fingers still entwined with mine, and I felt the steady pulse of her heart against my chest, a steady rhythm anchoring me. I traced slow circles on her back, feeling the tension slowly ease from her muscles. Each breath she took was a small victory, a reminder that despite everything, we were still here. Still fighting. Still hoping. I never thought I'd see a morning like this, she murmured, voice thick with a mix of exhaustion and something deeper, relief, maybe, or gratitude. I brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. It's ours. We earned it. Her eyes fluttered closed, and for a moment, she simply rested against me, letting the weight of the world fall away. The war wasn't over. It would rage on outside these walls, relentless and cruel. But here, in this quiet corner of the broken world, we found a sliver of something worth protecting. I whispered, we'll keep them safe. Every one of them. She nodded, her breath hitching slightly. And we'll keep each other safe, too. The boy stirred on the couch nearby, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips in sleep. The scars of his past hadn't vanished, but here, surrounded by people who refused to give up on him, there was space to heal. I tightened my hold around Mariah, feeling the fragile strength in her embrace. Whatever battles lay ahead, we would face them side by side, carrying the scars, but never letting them define us. Because this family, this fight, this hope was worth everything. And together, we were unstoppable. The quiet stretched between us, heavy with unspoken fears and fragile promises. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of rain and earth, a reminder that the world beyond these walls was still raw and wild. But inside, we carved out a sanctuary, a place where broken pieces could start to mend. Mariah pulled back just enough to look up at me, her eyes shimmering with a mix of exhaustion and fierce determination. Jay, she said softly, I'm scared. Scared that one day we'll lose this, that everything we fought for will slip away. I cupped her face gently, my thumb brushing along her cheek. I'm scared too, I admitted. But that fear, it's why we have to keep going. Because if we don't, who will? 63. Her lips trembled, and tears pooled in the corners of her eyes. I pulled her into me again, holding her tight as if I could shield her from every shadow lurking outside. We're not alone, I whispered. We have each other. And that makes us stronger than anything they throw at us. She nodded against my chest, and I felt her breath catch as a sob escaped, a release of years of pain held deep inside. I stroked her hair, murmuring words she couldn't hear but needed to feel. Asterisk, you're safe. You're loved. We're home. Asterisk, in that fragile moment, the weight of the world lifted just enough for hope to breathe. And for the first time in a long time, I believed we might actually win. The sobs quieted, replaced by a trembling silence that settled deep between us. Her fingers clung to my shirt like a lifeline, seeking comfort and strength I was only too willing to give. I held her close, feeling the steady rise and fall of her chest, grounding me as much as I grounded her. Outside, the sky shifted from pale gray to soft hues of pink and gold. Dawn was breaking, not just outside the window, but inside us too. The promise of a new beginning. Mariah pulled back just enough to meet my gaze, eyes glistening but fierce. We have to be ready, she said, voice barely above a whisper. They'll come for us again. And next time, it won't be so easy. I nodded, a fire kindling behind my own eyes. Then we fight harder, smarter, together. Her hand found mine, fingers tightening in that quiet pact we both understood. The war was far from over, but we weren't the broken children they once tried to control anymore. We were survivors, fighters, family. And as the first full rays of sunlight poured through the window, warming the room with their gentle touch, I knew one thing for certain. No matter what came next, we would face it, side by side, unyielding. Because this was our dawn, our fight, our future. 64. Shadows and ash. The smoke hadn't cleared. Ash still rained from the sky like slow gray snow, falling on the torn-up road and twisted metal. Fires crackled in the distance. The taste of it, burnt rubber, blood, ozone, coated the back of my throat. I staggered forward, boots crunching over shattered glass, one hand pressed to my ribs where the vest had taken the brunt of the blast. Mariah was just ahead, rifle drawn low, scanning each broken doorway, her breath coming out in hard bursts. The others had split off, circling the perimeter of the lab ruins. But here, this corridor, we knew this place. We'd been here before. The walls were scorched now, peeling paint revealing old bullet holes beneath. Memories stirred, screams echoing down the hall, the cold sting of metal cuffs, that humming scanner that once drilled into our minds. I pushed it away. Jay, Mariah called, pausing beside a door hanging off its hinges. Her voice cracked like static in the smoky air. I think they were experimenting again. On new kids. I moved beside her. Inside the room, what used to be cell block C, we found a row of empty restraints. The walls were smeared with fingerprints. A cot was overturned. A notebook lay on the ground, pages torn and scattered. On one of them, scrawled in a child's hand, they said we were chosen. But they lied. I swallowed hard. How long ago do you think? Before I finished, a groan came from the far corner. We froze. Mariah raised her rifle, moving swiftly but silently toward the sound. I flanked her, heart pounding like a drum. Behind a row of broken cabinets, we found him, a boy, maybe 9. Thin, bruised, trembling. His eyes were far too old for his face. Mariah dropped to her knees. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. The boy flinched, backing into the corner. I crouched beside her. We're not with them. We were like you. We escaped. He looked at us, doubt battling with hope in his eyes. Then slowly he nodded. They made me watch. Mariah's voice shook. Watch what? He hesitated, then whispered what they did to the others. She reached for his hand. He let her. We need to go, I said quietly. Before they come back. Outside, another explosion thundered in the distance. We turned toward it, instincts kicking in. The boy clung to Mariah's side, his small hand wrapped around her sleeve like a tether. 65. We emerged into the courtyard just as Carl and Juno returned from the north wing, both covered in soot and sweat. Extraction teams delayed, Carl barked. 15 minutes out. Maybe more. Mariah looked up at the sky, then at the boy. We're not losing him. Not today. Gunfire echoed behind us. They're circling, Juno said. We've got to hold the line. I stepped forward, loading a fresh clip into my rifle. Then we stand. And we did. Formed a wall. Made ourselves shields. Fired back, breath by breath, inch by inch. Every time I thought I'd fall, I looked at Mariah and saw her still standing. Still defiant. Still burning. When the extraction team finally came, ropes from above, dust kicking up beneath the Toll's engines, we had held our ground. We pulled the boy up first. Then the others we'd found. Then Juno. Carl. Mariah went last. I waited until her boots were off the ground before I grabbed the rope and rose with her. As the facility shrank beneath us, disappearing into smoke and wreckage, I glanced sideways. Mariah was watching the boy. He was crying, not from fear, but because for the first time he was free. She reached over and took my hand, and we didn't look back. The wind hammered us as the transport touched down on the ridge. Dust swirled up, stinging our faces, but we moved fast. The boy, Leo, clung to Mariah's side. She didn't let go, not even when we crossed the perimeter fencing and into the underground safe zone carved deep beneath the granite cliffs. The door sealed behind us with a heavy hiss, and the chaos of the outside world muffled into silence. Inside, it was cooler. Dim. A long corridor stretched ahead, lined with old stone, new tech. War meant refuge here. This place had been a bunker once, then a lab, and now our sanctuary. Carl peeled off toward the command center. Juno followed, but not before casting a long look back at the three of us. 5 minutes, she said. Then we regroup. Mariah and I nodded. 66. We found a quiet room, tucked away. No windows. Just walls and warmth and stillness. Leo sat down heavily on the cot and stared at the floor. His hands trembled. When I reached out to steady him, he didn't pull away. I didn't think anyone would come, he murmured. Mariah knelt beside him. We almost didn't. But we did, I added. We always do. He nodded once, then lay back, eyes fluttering closed. Exhaustion took him quickly. When he was asleep, Mariah stood slowly, her hands rubbing her arms like she was cold from the inside out. You okay? I asked softly. She didn't answer right away. Then, he reminds me of us. Too much. I stepped beside her. Yeah, I want to burn it all down, Jay. Everything they ever built. Everything they are. I looked at her, the hurt, the fury, the raw need for justice. And I understood. I felt it too. We will, I said. But not today. Today, we breathe. She leaned into me, her forehead resting against my chest. Her shoulders shook, not from weakness, but from the unbearable weight of survival. And I held her, arms wrapped tight. There were no more words. The war was still coming. Bigger, louder, crueler than before. But right now, in this fragile sliver of peace, we just stood still. Together. Alive. We didn't speak for a long while. Just stayed close, the silence between us heavy but not empty. It was the kind of silence that only came after the storm, the breathless space after a fight, when the adrenaline fades and everything you buried starts clawing its way back up. Mariah finally moved. She sat down beside Leo, brushed a strand of hair from his face, and watched him sleep. Her fingers lingered, like she wasn't sure he was real. He flinched when I touched him earlier, she said, voice raw. Same way I used to, back when the lights wouldn't go off in my head. I crouched down across from her. They hurt him. They do hurt him. Still. In his memories. In ways we'll never see. I nodded, throat tightening. But he's not alone anymore. She met my eyes. Neither are we. 67. The room felt smaller, warmer somehow. The walls weren't closing in, They were protecting us. We'd fought so hard to survive, to escape, to protect the ones like us. And for the first time in what felt like years, I let myself believe we might be doing more than just running. Maybe we were winning. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Light. Careful. Juno stepped into the room, a shadow behind her. Carl. They're coming, Juno said. East Patrol picked up drone movement 3 clicks out. Watching. Waiting. How long? I asked. Maybe an hour, Carl replied. Maybe less. Mariah stood. Then we move. Where? I asked. There's nowhere left to run. Her voice didn't shake. We don't run. We make a stand. She turned to me, fierce and beautiful and bleeding and whole all at once. They're afraid of us, Jay. That's why they chase us. That's why they cage kids like Leo. Not because we're broken, but because we survived what they couldn't. I stood slowly, and for the first time since we escaped the facility, I felt something inside me shift. Resolve. I looked over at the sleeping boy, and I swore to whatever gods might still be listening, I would never let them take him again. Then we stand, I said. Juno handed Mariah a headset. Carl passed me a sidearm. We geared up, armor creaking, breath steady. When the door opened and the alarms began to howl through the tunnels, we were already in motion. Not running, rising. The alarm tore through the silence, a jagged scream that bounced off the stone walls like a warning etched deep into the bones of the mountain. We moved without hesitation. Carl led the way, rifle ready, eyes sharp as he scanned every shadowed corner. Juno's fingers tapped her wrist rig, sending live updates as our positions flickered on the map. Mariah stayed close behind me, silent, swift, her gaze hard and steady with purpose. 68. Leo stayed back with the medics, wrapped tight in a thermal blanket. He clung to Mariah's hand like it was his anchor. She hadn't let go either, though before the alarm sounded, she bent down, kissed his forehead softly, and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." Now we moved like predators, silent, deadly. Up the ladder shaft, past the secondary access point, we emerged into the fading dusk. Below stretched the jagged ridge, wild and raw. The wind screamed across the exposed stone, but we weren't alone. 2 black recon drones hovered low, ominous and silent, vultures circling, waiting to pick apart the fallen. They didn't fire. Not yet. They watched, logging every move, painting targets in invisible beams. They want eyes on us, Carl muttered, tightening his grip. They need to know we're here before they call in the strike. Then let them see, I said. Juno glanced at me, questioning. You sure? They want us? Let them see what we've become. She tapped her wrist, sending a pulse of signal out in every direction. The drones blinked once, then again, and shifted higher, scanning wide. I stepped onto the exposed ledge. The wind slammed against me, fierce enough to push back, daring me to fall. I raised my arm. 1 drone pivoted, locking on. Good. They'll come fast now, Carl warned, steadying his weapon. Mariah slid up beside me, shoulder to shoulder. Her hand brushed mine, just for a heartbeat. I'm tired of running, she said. Then we don't, I replied. The sky rumbled, not thunder, but engines. 2 black aircraft sliced low through the treetops, stealth class, unmarked, deadly. I could feel the shift, the moment before chaos spills over. Juno's voice crackled in my earpiece. For minutes till strike range. Carl snapped off his safety. We don't wait that long. Mariah raised her rifle. I did the same. Then, the mountain erupted. Not from a missile, but from us. 69. Our shots ripped through the air loud, relentless. Not just war, but a declaration. A demand. A shout for freedom. The aircraft split, dropping soldiers fast, black suits, visors down, pulse weapons primed. We moved. Fast. Precise. Mariah took down 2 before they hit the ground. Carl tossed a charge that silenced their comms. Juno hacked their targeting with a flick of her wrist. I struck the lead officer, knee and chest, non-lethal but clear enough. The fight wasn't clean. It wasn't pretty. But it was ours. When the last fell or fled, silence swallowed us. "They'll come back," Juno said quietly. "Then we'll be ready," Mariah answered. I looked out over the ridge, the valley beneath softly lit by stars. No more cages. No more labs. No more fear. This wasn't the end. But for the first time, it felt like the beginning. The night settled heavy around us, thick with the smell of smoke and sweat, and something harder to place, hope. We moved back toward the safe house, boots echoing on cracked concrete, rifles still tight in our grips. Every shadow felt alive, every distant sound a potential threat, but we held our ground like we always did. Mariah's eyes never left the horizon, sharp and steady even when exhaustion pulled at her limbs. She caught my gaze for a moment, a silent promise passing between us. No matter what came next, we would face it together. Inside, Leo was waiting, eyes wide but trusting, a fragile spark of life in a world that tried to snuff him out. She knelt beside him, brushing hair from his sweaty forehead, whispering words I couldn't hear but knew were meant to heal. Carl and Juno gathered around the table, already plotting our next move, but for once, the weight of the fight didn't crush us. Instead, it steeled us. Because this fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming what they stole, our freedom, our family, our future. And as the first light of dawn crept over the ridge, I knew one thing for certain. We weren't just running anymore. 70. We were home. The dawn stretched slow and quiet, soft lights spilling through cracked windows and casting long shadows across the room. We sat around the worn table, the silence between us thick but not uncomfortable, more like the calm before the next storm. Mariah traced patterns on the wood with her fingertips, eyes distant but steady. Leo rested against her side, his breathing even now, a fragile thread of peace. I watched them both and felt the fierce protectiveness knot tight in my chest. Carl spread out a rough map, red and blue markers indicating patrol routes, drone paths, and potential weak spots. Juno tapped her wrist rig, pulling up live feeds from nearby outposts, always searching, always vigilant. "We need to move fast," Carl said, voice low. "Their forces are regrouping. We can't wait for them to come to us again." Mariah nodded, her jaw clenched. "Then we hit them first. Hit them where it hurts." I caught her eye and saw the fire burning bright, the same fire that had pulled us through every nightmare, every narrow escape. "We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore," I said, voice firm. "We're fighting for every kid they've taken, every life they've broken." The room felt charged, alive with purpose. And though the road ahead was dangerous, uncertain, we would face it head-on, together. Because this was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a war for our souls. And we would not back down. The hours passed in a blur of planning and preparation. We gathered what we could: ammo, medkits, comms gear, and checked our weapons again and again, as if sheer repetition could steel us against what was coming. Mariah moved with a quiet determination, every motion deliberate despite the ache in her injured leg. I caught her once glancing at Leo, her eyes softening just for a moment before steel hardened them again. "We move at nightfall," Carl said, folding the map with sharp precision. "We hit the east perimeter first, disable their surveillance, then sweep the holding cells." Juno nodded, already syncing her wrist rig with the rest of our gear. EMP bursts on the comms. Drones go dark. We get in, get the kids, get out. The room felt smaller now, cramped with the weight of what we were about to do. But the fire in our veins wouldn't be contained. Mariah stepped closer, her voice low and steady. "No more running. No more cages. Tonight, we take back what they stole." 71. I reached out, catching her hand in mine. The touch was brief but fierce, a promise sealed between us. "We're ready," I said. Together. And as the sun dipped below the ridge, bleeding red and gold into the horizon, we slipped into the shadows, moving as one toward the next battle in the war for freedom. 72. The edge of the night darkness wrapped around us like a shroud as we moved through the thick forest toward the east perimeter. The trees whispered secrets, their branches clawing at the night sky, but we didn't flinch. Each step was measured, silent, our breaths shallow, hearts pounding in time. Mariah led the way despite the limp, rifle steady in her hands. I watched her, how every movement was precise, every glance sharp with resolve. Beside her, Carl scanned the treeline, fingers twitching near his weapon. Juno stayed close behind me, eyes flicking between the trees and her wrist rig, fingers ready to strike. The perimeter fence loomed ahead, barbed wire glinting faintly under the moonlight. Surveillance cameras blinked like watchful eyes, and we knew the drone nests weren't far. Juno knelt, pulling an EMP device from her pack. "This'll blind their eyes for 2 minutes tops," she whispered. Mariah nodded. 2 minutes is all we need. Carl checked his comms. "Everyone ready?" A chorus of affirmations. Juno set the device near the fence, fingers flying over controls. A low pulse radiated outward. Moments later, the cameras stuttered, lights dying one by one. We slipped past the fence like shadows, heartbeats hammering but steps steady. Ahead, the compound rose cold, imposing, humming with unseen threats. "This is it," Mariah said. I swallowed hard. No turning back. Together, we pressed forward into the belly of the beast. The night was ours to take or lose. We moved through the shadows, every sense heightened. The compound's cold walls rose like a fortress against the night sky, illuminated by the harsh glow of floodlights and the pulse of surveillance beams. Our footsteps were swallowed by the thick carpet of fallen leaves and cracked concrete. Mariah signaled a halt, dropping low behind a rusted storage container. She whispered, "Security patrols rotate every 6 minutes. We've got a 2-minute window before the next sweep." Carl peered around the corner, spotting a pair of guards making their slow, deliberate rounds. They carried pulse rifles, their visors reflecting the dim light. "Wait for my mark," Mariah ordered. Juno's fingers hovered over her wrist rig, ready to unleash the EMP blast again if needed. I checked my rifle's chamber, heart pounding in my ears. The weight of what we were about to do pressed down on me. The lives depending on us, the ghosts from our past driving every step. 73. Mariah's hand clenched into a fist, then rose sharply. The EMP pulse hit the compound sensors like a blackout wave. Cameras flickered dead. The guards froze, their rifles lowered for a split second, their only chance. We moved, silent but swift. Mariah took the first guard down with a swift, practiced strike to the neck. I dropped the second before he could react. The silence swallowed us again. Ahead lay the holding cells. This was no longer about escape. It was about rescue and redemption. I spun her around gently, catching her close against me. Her breath hitched, eyes searching mine in the dim light, a mix of tension and something softer, hope, maybe, or relief. For a moment, the world shrank to just the two of us, the chaos outside fading to a distant hum. Her hands found my chest, steadying herself, and I brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. "We'll get them all out," I promised, voice low but fierce. "Together." She nodded, squeezing my arms. "Together." Then, with one last look, we slipped back into the shadows, ready to face whatever came next. We moved as one, the weight of every life trapped inside those walls driving us forward. The corridor ahead was cold and sterile, lined with heavy steel doors and faint echoes of distant sobs. Mariah's fingers danced over the keypad of the first cell. Sparks flew, her own defiance against the system that tried to cage us. The lock clicked open. Inside, eyes wide with fear met ours, children, scared but alive. Relief flickered in their gaze when they saw Mariah, like recognition from a distant, broken past. One little girl stepped forward, trembling. "Are you really here to save us?" Mariah's voice softened, every word a balm. "We're here. You're not alone anymore." Behind us, footsteps echoed, urgent, heavy. "Move," I hissed, grabbing the kid's hands. No time to waste. We swept through the cells, each door a small victory, each freed child a spark of light in the darkness. But the echoes grew louder, reinforcements closing in. I looked at Mariah, breath ragged, eyes fierce. "We need an exit plan. Now." 74. She nodded, leading us toward a narrow stairwell that would take us back to the surface, back to freedom. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. But with every step upward, hope grew heavier than fear. And that was a fight worth winning. We moved as one, the weight of every life trapped inside those walls driving us forward. The corridor ahead was cold and sterile, lined with heavy steel doors and faint echoes of distant sobs. Mariah's fingers danced over the keypad of the first cell. Sparks flew, her own defiance against the system that tried to cage us. The lock clicked open. Inside, eyes wide with fear met ours, children, scared but alive. Relief flickered in their gaze when they saw Mariah, like recognition from a distant, broken past. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. But with every step upward, hope grew heavier than fear. And that was a fight worth winning. Gunfire shattered the night air, sharp and chaotic. Bullets tore through the silence, sparking off concrete and metal as we dove for cover. Mariah's rifle barked in rapid bursts, each shot precise and deadly. I fired beside her, covering our flanks, eyes scanning for any sign of weakness in the enemy's advance. The children scattered behind crates and broken walls, fear mingling with the adrenaline that surged through their veins. Leo stayed close to Mariah, his small hands gripping her jacket as she fought with a fierce, unyielding strength. Carl and Juno moved like shadows, taking down targets with cold efficiency, their teamwork seamless after countless battles together. Despite the chaos, there was a rhythm to the fight, a brutal dance where every breath counted. I caught Mariah's eye across the courtyard. In that moment, everything else fell away. The pain, the fear, the years of running. Just us, fighting, living. The enemy's numbers began to falter, their assault losing its edge under our relentless counterattack. But reinforcements were still coming, too many, too fast. We need to fall back. Carl yelled over the gunfire. 75. Mariah hesitated, torn between the desperate need to protect and the brutal logic of survival. I reached for her, voice steady but urgent. We pull back. We regroup. We finish this. She nodded, and together we led the children toward the Treeline, the promise of darkness our only shield. As we disappeared into the night, I knew this battle was far from over. But we were still standing, still fighting, still free. Suddenly, from the shadows near the Treeline, a low, mechanical growl cut through the chaos, a sharp, chilling sound that froze the blood in our veins. Clover, the raptor. Its sleek, black frame emerged, moving with terrifying speed and precision, sensors glowing like angry eyes in the dark. Metal claws scraped the ground as it advanced, scanning for targets with deadly intent. Raptor incoming, Juno shouted, panic threading her voice. Mariah gritted her teeth, raising her rifle. Focus fire. Hit its sensors. Bullets tore into the machine's plating, sparks flying as it staggered, but didn't fall. Clover's movement was relentless, calculating, hunting. I grabbed Leo's hand, pulling him close. Stay behind me. The raptor lunged, its claws slashing through the air where we'd just stood. Carl tossed a smoke grenade, the thick cloud billowing around us, masking our retreat. Move. Now, I barked. We vanished into the trees, the growls and mechanical whirs fading, but never far behind. Clover was still out there, hunting. And we had no choice but to keep running. Clover came trotting alongside us, its heavy metal joints clanking softly, but with an eerie rhythm, like a predator pacing its prey rather than attacking outright. Its glowing sensors scanned the shadows, eyes flickering with cold intelligence. Mariah tightened her grip on her rifle, her breath steady, but her body tense. It's not attacking, she whispered, disbelief threading her voice. Juno's fingers flew over her wrist rig, trying to read the machine's signals. It's tracking us. But why isn't it firing? Carl kept his eyes locked on Clover, every muscle coiled for action. Maybe it's waiting for orders. Or maybe it's not programmed to kill us yet. 76. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of that mechanical gaze like a physical pressure. Then Clover slowed, falling into step beside us, not as an enemy, but something else. Something different. Mariah glanced at me, eyes wide. What the hell is this? The raptor's sensors pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. And for a moment, the line between machine and something alive blurred. I kept pace, my heart hammering as Clover trotted beside us, its movements eerily fluid for a machine built for destruction. The usual menace I expected was replaced by something, almost hesitant, like it was weighing its next move. Mariah's eyes never left the raptor, a mix of awe and suspicion flickering across her face. If it's not here to kill us, then what? Juno continued scanning, fingers trembling over her rig. I'm picking up some new coding, adaptive protocols. It's like Clover's been reprogrammed or evolving. Carl shook his head, voice low. A killing machine that hesitates? Sounds like a glitch or a trap. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing thoughts. Or maybe Clover's found something inside us it wasn't expecting. The raptor's sensors pulsed again, softer this time, almost like a pulse in time with our own. It stopped, lowered its head slightly, and for a fleeting moment, it felt less like a weapon and more like a guardian. Mariah's hand twitched near her rifle, but didn't raise it. Maybe it's waiting for us to make the next move. I exhaled slowly, eyes locked with the machine's glowing core. Then maybe we don't run. Clover's mechanical joints clicked softly as it waited. The night hung thick with tension, the future uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, hope felt like more than just a word. The quiet between us stretched, broken only by the soft hum of Clover servos and the distant rustle of the forest. I took a slow step forward, careful not to provoke, not to break whatever fragile truce had formed. Mariah stayed right beside me, her eyes sharp but her rifle lowered. Clover shifted, the glow in its sensors dimming slightly, almost like a nod. The metallic beast exhaled a low, mechanical whir, oddly soothing in the heavy night. Juno's voice crackled softly through the comms. I'm reading biosignals, almost like it's syncing with our vitals. Carl frowned, skeptical but intrigued. That's impossible. It's a machine. Maybe not anymore, I said, eyes never leaving the raptor. Mariah's breath caught. It's adapting, changing. A breeze swept through the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine, grounding us all in the moment. Clover took another step forward, and then, slowly, carefully, it extended a clawed limb, not in aggression, but in a gesture that felt almost deliberate. 77. I hesitated for only a heartbeat before reaching out, fingertips brushing cold metal. The contact sent a jolt through me, electric and raw. Mariah's voice was barely a whisper. It's reaching out. The machine's sensors pulsed warmly, syncing rhythmically with our own heartbeats. In that strange communion, the line between human and machine blurred, a silent promise forming in the darkness. We weren't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, we'd found an unexpected ally in the fight ahead. The night seemed to hold its breath as Clover's clawed limb hovered near my hand, the cold metal surprisingly gentle. I took a steadying breath and closed the gap, pressing my palm against its surface. The raptor's sensors pulsed beneath my touch, warm and steady, syncing with the thrum of my heartbeat. Mariah stepped closer, her eyes wide with disbelief and something deeper hope. I never thought I'd see the day. Juno's voice trembled with awe over the comms. This changes everything. If Clover can be more than a weapon, Carl's usual skepticism softened. Then maybe there's a chance for us after all. Clover emitted a low hum, almost like a purr, as it lowered its head beside us. The mechanical beast, once our relentless hunter, now felt like a guardian standing watch in the darkness. I glanced at Mariah, who nodded, a silent agreement passing between us. This was no longer a fight we faced alone. Together, with this unexpected ally at our side, we could take back everything they stole. And the war, our war, was just beginning. I turned toward Mariah, her eyes catching mine in the dim light, still wide with everything that had just happened, Clover, the truce, the impossible turning real. I leaned in, slow and sure, and pressed a kiss to her cheek. She closed her eyes for a second, just breathing, her lashes fluttering against her skin. When she opened them again, she gave me the smallest smile, quiet but unshakable. She didn't need to say anything. That one look said it all. Asterisk, I'm with you. All the way. Asterisk clover shifted behind us, metal joints clicking softly, but the moment held. Just us. Just this. And a fire in our hearts that not even the darkest of nights could put out.